So for this Sandbox episode, we're excited to talk to somebody whose work really honestly speaks for itself, but we're excited to dive in and talk to designer, speaker, and creative director, Gordon Reid. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Gordon to the show.
I just want to welcome. Yeah, that was great.
That's good.
You're among company. So Gordon, at a quick glance, we will notice that you have a slightly different accent than the three of us.
I do. Yeah? That is true. Yeah.
Yeah. So you hail from across the pond, as it were. But give everybody what we like to call the Wikipedia page about yourself. Get people up to speed on who you are and what you do.
Okay, cool. Well, I run a company called Middle Boop. I've been running that since university, so for about 11, 12 years now. And I started out, the whole idea behind what I do and what I wanted to do was to just work in the music industry. And especially at the time, like that, 10, 12 years ago, obviously, you guys know there's a massive call for screen printing in America, printing for concerts and gigs. And there really wasn't anything going in the UK at all. Like, you might get a few posters, but it wasn't really that beautiful kind of screen print. So that's how it all started, really. I kind of started running zines and then started doing screen prints for bands that I liked. And basically, on top of that, I had a music blog where it was just something that I started at university. But getting contacts from like labels, management, PR guys, bands, I was then able to go, hey, this kind of blog that no one really reads apart from the PR people themselves and maybe my mother. Shall I do some artwork for you? And that kind of happened. That started happening, and I started going on tour with bands around Europe and the UK and selling my artwork. And then that kind of led to doing like editorial work for all sorts of like computer arts and communication arts, those sort of guys.
Yeah.
Then moved into advertising because music industry doesn't really pay that well.
Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, yeah.
Because when you said going on tour with bands, I thought, how much artwork can a band require while they're on tour? And then I had this picture of you like sitting to the side of the stage doing like caricature drawings of like people in the audience or something. It didn't click.
I was that weird dude that did that stuff, man. Yeah.
At a punk show, just going at it.
Yeah, so doing the lead singer with a massive head on a wave runner with dolphins jumping over him in the background. Yeah.
Oh, you've seen my work.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah. You did a quick stint at Busch Gardens, right?
So then, wait, were you a musician at all, or it was just you enjoyed being around like the scene, like certain bands or groups or anything?
Well, no, the thing was, I had a couple of failed bands when I was like a teenager, and I could never get all of enough people to, when I was a teenager, I wanted to play Sonic Youth kind of music and the Melvins and stuff, and all of the guys in my band wanted to sound like, who was it at the time? Like emo kind of music, but like bad emo, not at the driving kind of stuff, like screamo sort of music. So I could never really like get the right people together to make the sort of music I wanted to. So my kind of reaction to that after seeing a few friends get fairly successful with bands was to go, you know what, I'm going to play to my strengths and see if I can do some artwork for people.
Yeah. So then taking that then, and because I cut you off where you were going with it, moving into, okay, this is great and I'm playing to my strengths, but now I need to also make money while playing to my strengths. What was that like transitioning into actually getting into advertising for, I assume, things outside of the music industry?
Yeah, they don't have the budgets for that sort of stuff. But advertising, it was great. It was really different, but it felt like the perfect time to do it. Really, I was at that point where it was, I was living in London, and I'd sort of achieved a certain amount of what I wanted to do, really, with working with musicians, and realised I really hated working with musicians most of the time. Because like advertising can be unprofessional, but working with musicians is they can get away with anything. Like, it's a different world.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the transition was great, really. It just felt like the right time. And it was different because I went from managing my own clients and working directly with clients to kind of then working through various chains of command to then do the work.
Sure.
But I kind of found that, especially after a while, there was a time when I was doing advertising one week, illustration the next, and balancing the both. And then I joined Saatchi & Saatchi in 2015. And that was all through a friend of mine. I sent a book of my illustration work, and we used to work at another agency together. And he phoned me up and said, "Do you want to have an interview or like a meeting, or like still as like a freelance kind of thing?"
Sure, yeah.
And I missed the meeting, which is something I've only done that once. Because my friends, a band called Mogwai, who I was doing artwork for, played 2 shows back to back in London, and I didn't really get much sleep. So like woke up having missed it and was like, I can't believe I've done this.
No kidding.
Yeah. And then he phoned me up like about 2 weeks later and was like, you missed that meeting, didn't you, Gordon? Oh, yes, sir. I'm really sorry, sir. I missed the meeting. Yeah. He's like, that's all right, mate. Do you want to come in and work? Yeah. Yeah. I'll do that. Yeah, that'd be great. And so we got to this point where at that point I was running the music website, which had grown quite a lot. We had about 70 writers writing articles, and editors and photographers. And it got to the point where I was editing it where I realized my role had gone from enjoying going to gigs and festivals and stuff and interviewing musicians and working on that side to kind of just babysitting bands and writers. And so I just said, when I went to Saatchi, it was a 3-week deal. It was to work on one ad. And I said, I'm going to put the website to one side and forget about it. And if I miss it, then I'll carry on doing it when I get back. But if I don't, then I'm going to sort of wash my hands of that, and I'm going to just focus on advertising. And the 3 weeks turned into like a year and a half.
And you're saying working with Saatchi & Saatchi?
That's right. Yeah. Like managing a couple of accounts or one account rather, and working on various different things. And it was just that time when I realized, like, actually, I love being on this side. I love being the art director rather than being the poor person that's like at 2 a.m. being art directed by someone.
So let's so that makes me very curious, and I didn't realize you'd worked at Saatchi & Saatchi, and so they are huge for anyone that's listening and doesn't know. And the best way to most recently the that's a Tide ad. That's something that they worked on, that they crafted that campaign for the Super Bowl. But so we were talking beforehand. Middle Boop is kind of, that was really my introduction to you, is through that. So we had Dave Clayton on the podcast, month and a half or whatever it was ago, and he spoke very highly of you and said we should check it out. Sent the Middle Boop website, and I really didn't know what Middle Boop was, and I've just been calling you Middle Boop ever since. That's how I've been referring to you, and I know now that's the company that you run, that you've created and evolved over the last decade.
That you actually have a name.
That you have a name. Your name's Gordon. It's not like Middle Boop Reid. But so moving from an environment like Saatchi & Saatchi to then now running Middle Boop, what kind of pushed that transition? Or I mean, I don't know if you went directly from one to the other, but what made you want to get out of that environment, which is in many ways like, at least I perceive it as like the big leagues of advertising, then managing your own agency or however you refer to it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that was it. I mean, I really love it there, and it was definitely the sort of catalyst working in that environment, because you really are working with like some of the most talented creatives and designers and people like that. And I sort of got to that point where I left one summer, and I set up a little studio, and I didn't really know what I was doing at the time, but I knew that I wanted a bit of time out of the advertising world, because it it's very intense, especially at that level when you're working with those sort of people. It can be very intense. And so I kind of felt like for that year at the time, I'd kind of put Middleboop to one side and just sort of focused on, I suppose, learning again, developing my career, developing what I wanted to do. And, over that time, I'd really changed. Like, I didn't go into Saatchi thinking, I'm going to stay here, I'm going to become an art director, and I'm going to design ads. I really thought I'd do this one ad for, it was for Ariel, but strangely, I do work for Tide when I work with those guys. Strange you said that, but I did. I really sort of fell in love with it, and it sort of came to that time where I just felt like, I don't know, I really got, because obviously the perks of working there are great as well. Like they have like a bar, like this secret bar that you have to go into, and they've got loads of cool stuff going on there, like a gym and weird. But, so, I don't have any of that running a studio.
Right.
Yeah. Well, you have kitchen cabinets, which we know about it now, so it's not secretive. So
cabinets full of candy. Yeah, basically that's what we've got here.
Just pouring candy, just pouring out.
Yeah, it's like the M&M's advert, right? You open the cupboards and it was it Skittles? I can't remember.
Total mess.
One of the two. Yeah, just a chaos. Absolute chaos. But yeah, I think so. Basically, I went back. I set up the studio for a little bit, and obviously it was a bit of a struggle because you're finding your own clients and starting to work in a different way. So I actually went back to Saatchi for about 5 months and worked on like one account, and that was when I was like, okay, I properly need a break from this now. It wasn't that great. So that was when I kind of, the people that I've been working with, strategy people and kind of more sort of brand focused people, I realized actually I quite enjoy branding people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And because, you illustrate someone or you create an illustration, you've got ownership over it, right? You go into advertising and you have ownership over a certain amount of work. And if it's your idea, you can say, hey, that's my idea. But if you're just designing a campaign, then there could be 15, 20, 30 people involved. And it's quite hard to put your stake in that piece of work, right? But with branding, if you get those clients direct to you, that's your ownership. That's your idea. That you can take it from just being that initial spark to the final piece, and it's out there, and you can be proud of that. And that's what I wanted to do. So I took a little time to actually kind of position myself as not being the guy that did illustrations for bands or films or whatever it was.
So let me ask a question then. Referencing your state of mind, right? So you were doing work with bands, you got this opportunity, you saw it as an opportunity, and then had the wherewithal to say, okay, I'm going to set this aside for 3 weeks. Did you say it was 3 weeks?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
How long you thought it was going to be. And you said, I'm going to intentionally set this aside, put all my attention and focus on this one thing. And then if after all of that, I still have a desire and a passion for this, then I'll come back to it. Now, obviously, it shook out to be a little bit longer than those 3 weeks. But have you always had a proclivity to being mindful of stuff like that? Do you always go into, whether it's a project or a job or whatever it is in life, with that amount of intentionality? Because that seems like that's a pretty mature step to take.
Well, thank you, Andrew.
Wait, do I say thank? No, I say you're welcome. I don't know how that works. Let's just stop. Let's just don't say thank you to me at all ever again, because it throws me off. No, but like, is that something that you've always trended toward? Like, where does that come from?
That's a really good question. Yeah, I think so. I think definitely nowadays I'm a lot more aware of of what I'm getting into and why I'm doing it and the reasoning behind it. I mean, pretty much every project, before I take it on, there's a lot of questions I ask myself. Obviously you talk about finance is a big thing. And then I also kind of plan out, well, is it going to benefit my career in some way? Am I going to learn something from the project? What's that sort of, what's the value in it, in each project? And that definitely, that particular time was huge because, I had no idea what was going to happen.
Right. Yeah. And for the age that you are at this point, at least if I'm tracking appropriately, you're a young adult at this point, right? And it would be easier to just end the question at, is this going to benefit me financially? Yes. Okay, I'll do it. And I think a lot of people, that's the only question they ask. And not that that's wrong, but I think that what you do, or at least what you a practice that you've worked out, is it. I think it better answers the question of, at the end of this, will I have added value to my own life, to my own brand, and will I feel satisfied on the other side of it? And before you take on that project, you've asked a lot of those questions, at least whether you've answered them or not, I don't know, but. I think there's something there for people who are just getting started in this, or who have been doing it for a long time and feel stuck or whatever. There's something there to be grasped and, I don't know, to be heated, I think, in that. And it's admirable at least. And at most it's very, very inspiring. Cause I don't usually do that. Right. Like, I'm one of those people who's like, okay, well, I get paid for this. How much will I get paid? Cool. All right. Do I have extra time? I'll do it. But there's more to it than that, right? I mean, there's more to the question than that. Yeah,
very much so. I think it's just, it's important to question these things because, we don't have a lot of time. I mean, I think certainly around that time, I was becoming very aware that I was like, well over 25, and I was approaching the big 3-0. Dave Clayton has long since gone past, and but it was just like, I mean, you need to ask these questions. I think, is it going to be beneficial? And if it's not, then, well, sometimes if it's just the money, you take the money. That's cool too, because we've all got to eat. Yeah. But I think it's good to ask those questions. I'm hard. I can be hard to work with, when I'm getting that stuff right, because I know what works and I know what doesn't. And I get people. I've had a lot of people recently ask to pay by the hour. Hey, I'm going to pay you by the hour. I'm like, I don't want to deal with that. Pay by the hour nonsense. Yeah. One guy yesterday wanted. He said, "This is how it's going to work. We're going to pay you by the hour, and we're going to record your screen so we know what you're doing at all times. And how does that sound?" And I said, "Well, let me tell you how this is going to work."
I didn't even realize that was a practice.
Neither did I, to be honest.
Wow.
Holy!
Well, it's not, is it? You're not going to do it, are you?
Oh yeah, I'm signed up, mate. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Money's money, right?
It was a lot of money, so it's
they're paying a ton per hour, so it's fine. It's fine with me.
$50, for the whole job. No, I told him. I said, no way. Like, I completely disagree with that way of working, because there's no trust, is there? Straight away.
Yep.
And it's like, when you're working with a client, there has to be that element of trust there between both of you.
Right.
So I don't.
Expand on that list then, because you're running Middle Boop and you have clients, and if there's like a checklist you're running through before you say, this is for sure someone I want to work with, what's that checklist?
Good. Well, I mean, the three main points were the ones I sort of went over, really. Definitely, obviously, the financial thing is major, because we're in an industry where it's extremely competitive and a lot of people want to do it. And there are websites that survive on banging out logos for $5 a piece, and we're competing against that, and all sorts of other things. So there's always going to be someone that will do the job cheaper, but it's not really about that. It's about kind of the quality of work. And I think so for me, that's the first stage. It's always, you've just got to do that. But then it's how are we going to work together? Are we going to get on? Is this guy going to dictate everything?
Sure.
Because I certainly think the way I try to do it with a lot of people is I try to make it more of a collaboration, especially when you're branding someone, because you're going to be working with those guys for months.
Sure. Right.
Or sometimes days, depending on what it is. And so you need to be able to make it more of a collaborative project process. The tick box is very much, am I going to like these people? And what will I get from it?
Sure. So let's jump into your work then, because we've talked about you and background, but we really haven't talked about the work that you've put out.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think straight away, one thing that stands out to me that I would love to hear more about is the Rio 2016 campaign. I think this is with Visa and then the Rio Olympics. But when you go to your site, it's one of the first things you see. I don't know what you call this because I'm not in the world you're in, but I assume it's some type of digital composition and illustration and stuff. But maybe talk about that project. And this feels really different than a lot of the other things that I'm seeing on your site. Because most of what I'm seeing seems to be directly illustration.
More graphic-based.
Or graphic-based. And then again, this feels more like compositing images together and digitally manipulating them.
Yeah. Well, first, that was a Saatchi job, first of all.
Okay.
And it was basically, what I started off doing actually was, before a lot of the graphic work and the kind of more vector-based sort of design and artwork was collage. And because I couldn't draw, I still can't draw particularly well. And again, my reaction to wanting to express myself creatively was to collage. And I found I really loved doing that sort of work and that medium. Yep. And a lot of the early music work that I worked on was collage based. So with that campaign, that was a great one, because it was, we had to pitch for the work. Even though we, as a client, worked with Visa. And so between myself and my two friends, this creative team, Mike Whiteside and Ben, I can't remember his last name. Let's call him Mike and Ben.
Yeah.
He'll hate that. We came up with this campaign, and it was the original route was like a double exposure kind of. The best way to describe it would be, the True Detective opening sequence.
Yep.
Yeah, similar sort of look to that, and it was beautiful. It looked really good, and the True Detective thing did my work was terrible. But and we got through it. We won the pitch on that, and that was very. I mean, it was at a point where I was working on it from 9 a.m. till 7 or 8 p.m. and I was going home, and we were having we booked another designer to work all through the night to get everything ready for this pitch. So I would come in the morning, and some dude who I would never meet has just totally ripped apart all of my work, and you're trying to find all the layers and files and going, what is going on? But we got through it, and we made it happen. And this is a good one, because this was the first project also where I felt afterwards I could call myself an art director properly. Because as it turns out, I realized inadvertently I'd art directed loads and loads of projects before, but it never clicked in my head that actually, I can do this. It's really weird. Yeah. So with this project, we then won the pitch, but they didn't like the original idea. So we, between the creatives and the head of design and all of us, we came up with this concept of the collage, right, of the heart. And the idea was to use the heart as a metaphor for Visa's tagline, which was Visa is always on. So we're talking about Rio, the heart of the Olympics is always pumping, and the heart of the Olympian is always running, or whatever the line was. So you had those really great lines working with a nice graphic, and it just kind of all came together. So the creatives went off and did the motion. The head of design and I were kind of like coming up with this sort of mixture of, it was like 3D rendered objects and photography. We worked with this great production agency, and we were just getting stuff through, and it wasn't quite working in terms of the files. So I said to the head of design, like, who's lovely guy, such a nice guy, a guy called Bruno, he's really talented. I said, mate, we need to kind of move this on a stage to get it working. And he said, well, why don't you go into the studio and direct them? I was like, yeah, sounds good. Yeah. I was just going to go and get lunch, so so that was it. And I was going to this studio, and you're meeting, their production, and it was a company that used to do. They were like the artworking phase, so like the last stage before ads would go to print for like billboards and newspapers. But they have this suite of 3D rendering guys, sweaty dudes in this little room on cinema.
We have a name.
You beautiful people. We'll go around. So I'm down there chatting to these guys about soccer, and they would proper like mock me. All right, Gordon, how you doing, mate? Yeah. And I'm directing this team of people, like we tweak that, move that, and it was, and then it was rolling it out. It was taking that ownership of the campaign and developing all of the guides and the rules, and it just went from. It was one of those jobs where I knew it was going to be an absolute beast to work on, but it's the Olympics, and
it became a milestone for you.
Totally, man. And that ad ran. I mean, it was mad because when I took it on and we got it agreed, the artwork, and everyone loved it, and I was happy. Then it was about just making this artwork work for countries all around the world.
Yeah, exactly. And something like that. It's global, and you have to think globally about how that functions and everything. I got the opportunity to go to those Olympics and to see all of one of my favorite parts about that Olympics specifically is how well I felt like everything was branded and how well everything carried through in the city. Like when I was at Rio, everything had yours and a swell of other people's work everywhere, all over the buildings, all over the streets, all over everything. The whole city embraced that idea. And so for something that's like massive, like the Olympics, that's definitely a resume builder, if nothing else. I do want to know one other piece, and then we'll go into our finals. You got the opportunity to work on the Elon Musk biography book. So how did that project come about? And obviously Elon Musk is notorious in infamy right now for being he's the creator or the owner, CEO of Tesla, right?
Yep.
Whatever his title is, he's the Tesla guy, right? He's the guy who's responsible.
Right now, he's the space guy.
Right,
SpaceX.
space guy in
Or the
charge of all.
guy.
He's the only one of us that has a car floating in space right now. So
Yeah. So how did that project come about, and what was the? Obviously, this is a much different take than the Olympic stuff. This is very graphic heavy. This is very icon, based. How did this project come about, and what was the take on it?
I just phoned Elon and said, "Hey, let's do your book cover, right?"
Perfect. That's easy.
cool.
That's how every job happens, right?
Done.
Yeah.
Just phone Elon Musk. Got him on speed dial. No, I actually, this was so. Strangely enough, it was. I did a concertina fold-out book maybe 4 years ago now, actually, and that particular at the time when I did it, I'd been doing a lot of music work again, and it was one of those that I keep swearing I'll never work on an album again. I can't be bothered. It's rubbish. And then you do loads, and then you can't get paid for some of them, and it all anyway. So I was a bit sort of down, and I was like, I don't know where the next paycheck's going to come from. And that book I started sending out to places, and still today, over the course of the years, people have been like, yeah, you sent me a pack like 2 years ago. I love your work. I've got something for you. And that's how Saatchi came about. It was the same book. And that's how Tesla came about. It was Faber and Faber, the publishers, who do a lot of good stuff. They do a lot of great music books, actually. But they had the rights to do this one of these biographies. And it was written by, I think it was his PA, someone that's been very close to Elon Musk for a very, very long time. And he'd written it, and their art director got in touch, and that was it. He said, I think your work would be really good for this cover. And I'd always wanted to do a book cover. It really was one that I wanted to tick off the list. And excuse me, my voice went then. Just getting emotional talking about.
Yeah, listen, your work is in space, kind of, so it's fine.
Kind of, yeah. It should be in space. Just get it up there. No one needs to see it. Get it out there. Get it where no one can hear it scream.
So we'll shift this conversation now to the final, so that we can be aware of your time and keep this bite size.
Oh, we'll keep everybody. It going, man. I'm enjoying this.
But you just mentioned. So here's mine. You just mentioned that checking one off the list, essentially a book cover off the list. What's a project you've done a ton, right? So just to clarify, if you're unfamiliar with Gordon's stuff, go to his website and you can see you do a little bit of everything. But what's the one thing you haven't done yet that you're itching to do? The one either type of project or the specific client that you're clamoring to work with?
I got two actually at the moment, and I only realised this quite recently. I still haven't done a beer packaging.
Okay.
Really,
everybody wants to do beer. I'm like, this is like a trend we're hearing. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, I know, and I'm not even. I'm kind of done with beer at the moment. I'm drinking wine here. Like that's the thing. But I think I don't know. Especially. I mean, like over there. I mean, I was in New York a couple of times last year. And I mean, the bars there for years now, actually, have just, you walk into a great bar in New York or wherever it is, and it's microbrewed stuff. Right?
Yeah,
there's not a lot of kind of premium lager on tap so much. You get Samuel Adams or whatever. But and that wave came over to the UK a few years ago, and now everyone, in their garage or their basement or whatever is brewing some horrible concoction.
Oh, yeah, that's you.
Yeah, you know about it.
I went to a wedding where, and I think the groom, maybe it was either him or his friend, did all the beer for the wedding. And so I was very excited because the descriptions were good and I was pumped and all that kind of stuff. It is some of the worst stuff I've tasted in my life. And the problem is that was like the beer for the wedding. That's all you were getting. Man, what a letdown.
I hate it, man.
What I would have done to just really had anything else other than that in that moment. Yeah. So maybe some people just shouldn't be doing it, but
yeah, that's true.
Sorry.
But you want to do beer labels. What's the other thing you said?
Oh, I can't remember now. What was the other thing? Beer labels and like a restaurant or a bar or something around that. I've never done them.
Yeah.
I came close a couple of times, and I came close to a sort of alcoholic drink. This guy came to me; it was brilliant. He wanted to do a Red Bull, alcoholic Red Bull kind of drink.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, I was like, yeah, I'm up for it. Sounds fantastic. Thinking at the back of my mind, who would ever drink that drink?
Well, people do, but I think aren't they illegal here now?
Yeah, people have been hospitalized. One was what was it? It was some weird name.
Balls? Wasn't there one called Balls?
Four Loko.
Four Loko.
Four Loko. Oh, I've heard about this. Yeah, I have heard about it.
Yeah.
Be okay that you didn't get that
Yeah,
one.
it feels like you dodged a bullet there. So
Yeah.
And there's been some good bullets to dodge. But I mean, this one was the same. I think he went to legal, and people were like, "Are you mad? Like, we're not going to let you release this drink.
You can't do this."
So I'll jump in real quick. So I know that something that's important to you, because we talked before the show about this, but also you've mentioned it a couple times, and you said the word educator, and you talked about education and learning. And I know that one of the things, if you go to your site that's very prominent, is your speaking schedule and the events that you do. So talk a bit about that, the role that, kind of taking the knowledge you have and the experience you've gained and turning around and trying to give that to someone else. Maybe talk about that for a bit. And then also it's a great opportunity to talk about the events that you have coming up as well.
It sounds great, yeah. Well, I kind of got into it in a strange way because I never really considered it for a long time. And then a friend of mine texted me and said, "Do you want to stand in on this talk?" And it was about 300 people in London. And the lineup was really good. He had some really good designers that were talking that I'm still friends with now. And I did it and enjoyed it. I was nervous as hell. Like everyone had to sit on the front row that was speaking, and people would be sat there with like a beer.
I hate that.
Yeah, it's horrible. Like watching other people that are really good at talking just like nail it, and then you're like, "Oh, I've got to beat that." Like, it's really hard. Yeah. But it was. There was a particular time. It was about a year and a half ago. And I had some friends that do talks, and it was about. I just thought, I quite fancy doing some more of these things. I think it'd be quite fun, and I knew that I really wanted to. It was at the time I was setting Middleboop up as this design and branding agency. I thought, what better way of kind of advertising myself than to do these talks. And so I just started putting my name out there a little bit for conferences, and some started to come through, and it was brilliant. Like, so I did last year. I started off at in Amsterdam, then moved over to Off Festival in Barcelona, and things kind of started to snowball after that. And basically, the reasoning for doing it is because I really, first of all, you feel like you're giving something back, right? You're helping people out that might need a bit of guidance or a bit of inspiration in their job, their career. Second of all, I really like kind of performing in front of people, and I think a lot of talks that I'd done or seen over the years, they're very self-indulgent, right? And you've got the vibe where you stand on the podium and you go, "Hey, this is my work, and isn't it great? And my life's cool." And you're like, "Oh, why don't you take a walk off no one wants to do that. I don't want to hear this guy, massaging his own ego." So I thought what would be great would be to kind of start talking to people about creative failures and focus on the fact that actually it's really okay to fail. And learn from those failures, and I just try and make people laugh a lot,
which has been a great strategy. Yeah.
So I pick on people in the crowd, and I just walk up and down and just have it's great fun. So I think like that's kind of why I did it, and all of these talks, these conferences have led to more stuff. So Off Festival, Adobe were sponsoring that. So they got me to do like a filmed interview, which is kind of like a kids' TV show or something. It's a bit weird. And from that, they started commissioning me to do artwork for them at Adobe, and brought me over to. They do like a live. I don't know if you've ever heard of Adobe Live. They do like a so I did one of those in Paris, which was really cool. And just all of that sort of stuff, they kind of snowball. And the FC talk, which apparently didn't go, I thought it went great. They beg to differ. So I won't be back there, I don't think.
We need you to stand on stage and talk about your work. We don't need you to make people laugh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they said that to me. They said, you know what? We don't need a joker. Yeah, you do. It's boring. Like, you got people talking about boring stuff. Like, I want to make people laugh. I want to, if nothing else, entertain myself. They're like, no, you know, if you're going to tell jokes, you've got to be like really big, right? I'm like,
Wow.
why? Why would you need to be?
What an interesting.
You after you were done?
Yeah, via email, like really like cold emails, like. Yeah, you've got to like be really big to do that. I'm like, what? So only Stefan Sagmeister or whoever can make a joke in a conference? Like that's nonsense.
Wow.
So I didn't. Yeah. So, but that led to I did a headlined Thought at Work in Rochester, New York, a couple of months ago, and that was from that conference.
Yeah.
Nice.
But you were allowed to tell jokes. Yeah.
No, they were very strict. You can talk. You can come to New York. No jokes though.
You can't say a single joke. You can't even look funny.
Yeah, honestly, and that was great. I got some guy was driving me around for my friend Tim. He picked me up at the airport, and for like 5 or 6 days, just driving me everywhere. Lovely guy, and cool. It was a dry campus. Mm-hmm. I kind of went there thinking, you know, it's a university, everyone's going to be like out partying, and it was very different. Like, I couldn't wait to have a beer over there, and everyone was kind of like, hey, yeah, this is the rowing society, and this is the hockey society, and I don't care.
But where is the beer?
You're like,
where's the beer? Where's the microbrew Rochester beer? And I had to get this poor guy Tim, to smuggle me in some beer because before I went on, and he went, "How many beers do you want?" I said, "I don't know, 6." He's like clinking into my dressing room. He's got 2 beers, and he's like, "Mate, if I got caught with 6 beers, that would be it. Like, that'd be
right."
Hey, listen, Gordon, that is the exact kind of story you're not allowed to tell at the Adobe Live event. Just so we're clear,
that story is far too funny.
The way that you jingled in like that.
Were they at least tall boys, though?
Tall boys? No, they were like pasty white guys. You know what I mean? No one's kissed a girl over there.
Right. All right. Well,
I love every part of that.
I'm going to round us out. With my final question. So you've talked about music. You talked about being in bands. You mentioned Mogwai, which is a great band. I love Mogwai. If you were going to be in a successful band and be able to do that, what music would you be playing? What kind of band would you be in?
Well, I mean, so I started a band a couple of years ago with the creative that we did the Olympics with, and because we loved. We just had we had a lot of chats around that time around, like, you know, Deftones and all of those sort of, like, I suppose, like, kind of new metal bands, and then sort of progressive heavy rock. Who else is in that sort of list? Oh, there's hundreds, isn't there? Mm-hmm. I could name. And we kind of said, well, why don't we start a band and do that sort of music? So we got together. It was me, this guy Mike, my friend Mike, and his friends on drums. And we went into this horrible North London studio. Just like, it was you go there, it was below a bakery. So you go in and it would smell fantastic.
Yeah.
Like, you smell cakes, and you get down into the basement, into the, like, vaults, this horrible place, and it would just smell like body odor and like weed, stale beer, and you're like, okay, I get the kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And we just played. So we said we were going to play Deftones. We're going to play one Deftones track and then start jamming and see what comes from there. And we just ended up playing real noise kind of music. So,
nice.
Like, really horrible. Yeah. Again, like Melvins and all that sort of stuff. Just really dingy, like 10-minute tracks.
Yeah.
And we had a point where we were loving. We were like, we're going to put this out there, and I'm playing it to my friends in Mogwai, and like really nervous. I'm like, what do you think of this? Like, and they were like, yeah, it's quite good, yeah.
Nice.
And I'm thinking maybe I should ask them if I can support them on a tour or something. And then we had we quit the band. We finished the band because we had this idea. We rehearsed on Monday nights, and we had this idea of, if we rehearsed on a Thursday or Friday, it would stop us from like going out at the weekend and partying. So let's do that. But it just got to the point where like one or two of us would turn up and the other one would still be out partying anyway.
Hey, you know what? A for effort. That was sound logic going into that. You know, you should have commended for the attempt. Absolutely.
Thank you very much. We wanted to sound like bands like Slint and Codeine, and you just reminded me Codeine have a song, A for Effort. And, yeah, that was quite a nice segue.
Yeah. Good,
I knew I was trying to set you up.
Trying to set me up with a really obscure American.
He just messaged us and he's like, I'll help him out with this reference. 1 second.
I'm the resident music guy.
No, I was going to say, this is like the first episode where I actually knew the bands the guest was talking about, because normally Luke is the only one that can follow, because it's just, they're talking about garbage that I would never listen to. But you've
actually the band Garbage. Yeah.
No, you've actually referenced. It's great. They're bands that I actually know and listen to and grew up listening to. And by grew up, I mean like high school, college. That was my jam. That's awesome.
So
growing up, I listened to Barney growing up. High school or college.
Until high school. He was listening to Barney.
That's when I made the shift.
Tell everybody where they can find you, where they can see the work that you do, they can follow along, they can support what you're doing.
So you can get me at my website, which is middleboop.com, BOOP for Peter.com. That's when you can see my work. I'm on Instagram. In fact, basically, if you just Google Middle Boop, then that you'll find me. I'm on all sorts of things. Instagram's the big one for me at the moment. I seem to be doing well on there.
Where does that name come from, Gordon? Where does Middle Boop come from?
Oh, yeah.
That is, I get asked that a lot. Strange. It's not a surprise, but it basically. So when I was still at university, I started Middle Boot with a friend of mine, and we just had this idea that I wanted to get to the top of Google for whatever I did, without it being too much effort. So coming up with a name that made absolutely no sense seemed to be the fair reasoning to do that. So we were at a festival. My friends run this we used to run an amazing festival in the UK where they would have it at they have one in America actually, but they would have it at holiday camps.
Okay.
And so the deal was you would go and see this amazing lineup, but you could stay at this holiday camp. So they had 3 stages that were already kitted out, and they would get really good sound guys from London, and they booked Nick Cave and Iggy Pop and people like that to play. And the deal was that no one's a superstar there. No one's, everyone can just walk around and meet people. So you'd be in a Pizza Hut, and Warren Ellis, the violinist from Nick Cave, would be having a pizza buffet next to you. And you could just go and chat because they were really, weird things like that. And it was a really beautiful kind of bubble in the UK for a long time. And that was a cool thing, because that was when I sort of realised actually I can kind of, if people like that are just, if it was the first time I realised that the people that I kind of idolised were just real people trying to do something creative. Yeah. So that was when we kind of had that spark. We were sort of well, maybe we should do something that we actually really like, instead of just, going into a design job and doing crap work, So it was like an in-joke from that festival, the 2 words, and we just put them together. And wasn't that funny? It's not that. Tell you what, it wasn't funny 10 years ago. It's it's less funny now.
I love your your complete self-awareness and an open what's the word I'm looking for? Where like it's not self-loathing, but it's
self-deprecation.
Deprecation. I love it. It's beautiful.
I knew he was trying to say the word deprecation, but I just wanted to see him struggle a little bit longer.
What a dick. All right. Hey, would you do us a favor and help us draw tokens so that we know what we're talking about next week?
No, I'm not going to do that.
All right. Well, it was nice talking to you.
Go on, let's do it. What have we got? Let's draw a token.
All right. That's it for the interview portion. Up next, we're going to draw some tokens. The tokens portion every week is when we get to find out exactly the categories we have, and then we pick our topics based on those categories. I've got the tokens here. I'm going to lay them down, face down in front of me. I'm going to shuffle them around on my desk. I can't see them. You can't see them. But Gordon, if you would be so kind as to give me a number between 1 and 3, you'll be picking for Luke.
I'm going to say 2.
Luke, you have art and design.
Awesome.
We can't make this up. Give me a number between 1 or 2. Nope, just a number of 1 or 2. And we'll pick it for Patrick.
I'm going to say 1.
Patrick, you got TV and film.
Hey!
That means that I have toys and games. I think for the severalth week in a row. Man, you are a blast, Gordon. Thank you so much for coming on. Make sure you check out his stuff. Support him, follow him. If he's going to be at an event in your area, go out there and tell him that you heard him on the show, and he'll give you $50. At least that's when he told us off air.
I'll tell you what, I don't have $50. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant to say give him $50 when you see him.
$50, Just if you see me, just give me money. That's great. That'd be great.
And don't worry, he will not be funny. He has learned his lesson.
I've been told that.
Go to mofonepodcast.com if you want to find show notes and links to all the stuff that we just talked about. If you're watching this on YouTube, just look below in the links. You can find everything you need to know and everything you need to see to connect to all of Gordon's stuff, as well as our archive with a ton of other people who, including Dave Clayton, who we so lovingly referred to a couple times in this episode. Go check out that episode. But while you're on there, whether on YouTube or on Spotify or iHeartRadio or Google Play or iTunes or wherever it is you're listening or watching or taking in this content, like, share, subscribe, review, rate, do all the things, comment. You know how to do this stuff. You're modern people. We believe in you. Yeah, you're an adult. You can make this happen. So sharing is caring, everybody. That's super helpful to us. If you want to support the show beyond that, you can go to patreon.com/M1podcast and throw a couple of bucks in the old proverbial bucket. It will help us to continue to do what we do and hopefully get better at it. Fingers crossed. Am I missing something? We're going to be at Crop in a couple of weeks, and we're going to be at Creative South the week after that. We have a workshop there. I know that there's only a few tickets left for Crop, so if you're watching this on release day, you may still have a chance to get a few tickets. Otherwise, they're going very, very fast. Creative South is the same exact way. I think for now, we're going to get out of here, though. I'm Andrew.
I'm Patrick.
I'm Luke.
I'm Gordon.
Peace out.
Bye.
Hold on to your butts.
Sayonara, suckers.